"You filthy thief!" Gregory Langston's voice thundered, his palm cracking against Maya Williams' cheek in the glittering dining hall of Langston Manor. Before a sea of tuxedos and gowns, the powerful CEO branded the young black waitress a criminal, accusing her of stealing a priceless white truffle. Humiliated, Maya stumbled out, her dignity in tatters. But fate had other plans. A hidden camera, set up to probe wage disputes, captured the truth. Langston himself pocketing the truffle, his sneer as cold as the marble floors. Clutching this damning footage, Maya, a single mother fueled by grit, filed charges for assault and defamation, igniting a war against a titan. What will her evidence unleash? Will justice prevail against power? Subscribe to follow this gripping saga, share where you're watching from, and when. Day or night. Stay tuned. Secrets unravel, and vengeance awaits. What's your prediction? The chandelier above Langston Manor's dining hall burned like a captured star, its light fracturing across crystal flutes and polished silver. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, a symphony of wealth orchestrated by Gregory Langston, the manor's untouchable lord. At the room's edge, Maya Williams moved like a shadow, her tray of hors d'oeuvres steady despite the ache in her feet. Her black uniform clung to her skin, a stark contrast to the glittering gowns around her. She was invisible until she wasn't. "Thief!" Gregory's voice sliced through the din, his accusation a blade. Heads turned as he stormed toward Maya, his face a mask of righteous fury. "You thought you could steal from me?" He held aloft a white truffle, its earthy scent mocking her. Before she could speak, his hand cracked across her face. The slap echoed, sharper than the gas that followed. Maya stumbled, her tray clattering to the floor, shrimp and caviar scattering like broken dreams. The room froze. 100 eyes, senators, heiresses, moguls, watched, their silence louder than any protest. Maya's cheek burned, but it was the weight of their indifference that crushed her. Gregory's lips curled into a sneer. "Get her out," he said, waving to security. Two men in suits grabbed her arms, dragging her through the sea of onlookers. A woman in emeralds whispered, "Disgraceful," as if Maya were a stain to be scrubbed away. Outside, the night air hit her like a second blow. The gravel crunched under her worn shoes as security shoved her toward the gates. "Don't come back," one muttered. Maya's breath hitched, tears stinging her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not where they could see. She clutched her purse, the only thing they hadn't stripped from her, and walked into the darkness, the manor's golden glow fading behind her. In her cramped apartment, the world felt smaller. The hum of a flickering bulb replaced the dining hall's opulence. Leo, her 8-year-old son, slept on the couch, his small chest rising and falling under a patched blanket. Maya's heart twisted. She worked double shifts for him, for his future. She sank into a chair, her hands trembling as she pulled out her phone. She hadn't meant to check the footage tonight. The hidden camera, tucked in her apron to document wage theft at the manor, was a desperate measure, one she'd almost forgotten. But now, with her cheek still throbbing, she opened the app. The screen glowed, and there it was. Gregory Langston, in crisp high definition, slipping the truffle into his pocket. His eyes darted, ensuring no one saw before he turned to the crowd and roared his accusation. Maya's breath caught. The footage didn't just clear her name, it damned him. She replayed it, frame by frame, watching his calculated cruelty unfold. Her tears fell now, not from shame, but from a fire kindling within. This was no accident. He'd chosen her, a single mother, a black waitress, because he thought she was powerless. She wasn't. Maya wiped her face, her jaw tightening. She thought of her mother, who'd scrubbed floors for men like Gregory, swallowing their insults to feed her. She thought of Leo, who deserved a world where truth mattered. The video was her weapon, but wielding it meant war. Gregory Langston wasn't just a man. He was a machine of wealth and influence, with lawyers sharper than knives. Could she take him on? Doubt gnawed at her, but Leo stirred in his sleep, murmuring, "Mom?" His voice was a lifeline. "I'm here, baby," she whispered, brushing his hair. His innocence anchored her. She couldn't let him grow up in a world where men like Gregory won. She opened her laptop, her fingers steady now, and searched for a lawyer. Marcus Thorne's name appeared, an underdog civil rights attorney with a reputation for fighting lost causes. Perfect. She drafted an email, attaching a still from the video. "I need your help," she wrote. "He can't get away with this." As the email sent, Maya leaned back, the room's shadows closing in. Her cheek still stung, a reminder of the fight ahead. She didn't know Marcus yet, didn't know if the law would care about a woman like her, but she knew one thing. Gregory Langston had made a mistake. He'd underestimated her. The footage wasn't just evidence. It was a spark, and Maya was ready to burn his world down. She stood glancing at Leo's sleeping form. "We're not done," she said softly, her voice steel wrapped in velvet. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to the storm brewing in her heart. Gregory thought he'd silenced her, but the truth was louder than his lies. Maya closed her laptop, her eyes blazing with a resolve that could shatter empires. Let him try to crush her. She had the truth, and it was only the beginning. Maya's apartment felt like a fortress under siege, its thin walls no match for the weight of her resolve. The memory of Gregory Langston's sneer burned hotter than the mark on her cheek, but the video on her phone was a blade she could wield. She hadn't slept, her mind replaying the footage until dawn painted the sky gray. Leo's soft snores from the couch were her anchor, each breath a reminder of why she couldn't back down. She'd sent the email to Marcus Thorne hours ago, and now as morning broke, she waited, her heart a drumbeat of hope and dread. The city outside buzzed with indifference, but inside, Maya was a storm gathering strength. She sipped bitter coffee, her eyes fixed on her laptop. Marcus's reply came at 7:03 a.m., curt but promising. "Meet me at my office, 10 a.m., bring the evidence." Her pulse quickened. This was it, the first step into a war she wasn't sure she could win. She glanced at Leo, now stirring, his brown eyes blinking open. "Mom, you okay?" he asked, voice thick with sleep. "I will be," she said, forcing a smile. She wouldn't let him see the fear coiling in her gut. After dropping him at school, Maya boarded a crowded bus, the city's pulse thrumming through its steel veins. Marcus's office was downtown, a cramped suite in a building dwarfed by glass towers. The sign on the door, Thorne and Associates, was faded, but the man inside was anything but. Marcus Thorne stood as she entered, his graying hair and rumpled suit betraying years of battles fought and lost. His eyes, though, were sharp, assessing her like a chess player studying a new board. "You're Maya Williams," he said, not a question. "Show me what you've got." She handed him her phone, the video already cued. Marcus watched in silence, his jaw tightening as Gregory's hand struck her face, as the truffle vanished into his pocket. When it ended, he leaned back, exhaling. "This is dynamite," he said, "but Langston's no small fish. You sure you want to do this?" Maya's throat tightened. She saw her mother's hands calloused from cleaning houses for men like Gregory, heard her mother's voice. "Keep your head down, Maya. They always win." But then she saw Leo's face, his trust in her to do what was right. "I'm sure," she said, her voice steady. "He doesn't get to ruin me and walk away." Marcus nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "All right. We filed for assault and defamation. That video's our ace, but Langston's got an army. Lawyers, PR, maybe worse. You need to be ready for hell." "I've been through worse," Maya said, though her stomach churned. She thought of the Manor's guests, their cold stares. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person they'd stepped on and forgotten. By noon, the news broke. A local blog, tipped off by Marcus's paralegal, posted a headline. "Waitress accuses Langston, CEO of assault, claims video proof." Maya's phone buzzed with notifications, each one a jab to her nerves. She ignored them, focusing on Marcus's plan. File the lawsuit, leverage the video, and brace for impact. But the impact came faster than expected. By evening, her name was trending, twisted into hashtags that painted her as a liar, a gold digger. "Langston victim" or "Langston villain," one post sneered. Maya's chest tightened. She hadn't expected the world to turn so fast. Across town, in a glass-walled office overlooking the skyline, Gregory Langston leaned back in his leather chair, a tumbler of whiskey in hand. His lawyer, a hawkish man named Preston, stood before him, scrolling through a tablet. She's got nothing but a video, Preston said. We'll bury it in countersuits. Public opinion's already shifting. Gregory's eyes glinted, cold as the ice in his glass. I don't want it buried, he said. I want her crushed. Dig into her past, every job, every boyfriend, every mistake. Make her regret crossing me. Preston nodded, already dialing his team. Gregory swirled his drink, his mind drifting to a memory he rarely touched. His father, E.W., handing a crumpled bill to a woman like Maya's mother, her eyes downcast. He'd despised that weakness, that groveling. Maya was no different, he thought. Just another opportunist trying to claw her way up. He'd show her her place. Back at her apartment, Maya tucked Leo into bed, his small hand warm in hers. You're fighting the bad guy, right, Mom? He asked, eyes wide with trust. Yeah, baby, she said, her voice soft but fierce. She kissed his forehead, then sat alone, the city's lights flickering outside. The world was turning against her, but the video was her truth, and truth was a fire that wouldn't die. Gregory's words echoed in her mind. Crush her. Let him try. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Leo, for her mother, for every shadow the Langstons had crushed. The battle had begun, and she was ready. Maya's world felt like it was unraveling, each thread pulled by unseen hands. The lawsuit was barely a day old, but the air already crackled with hostility. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications piling up like bricks in a wall closing her in. She stood in her kitchen, the morning light harsh through the cracked blinds, as Leo munched cereal, oblivious to the storm. She'd shielded him from the headlines. Waitress's lies exposed, screamed one tabloid, a grainy photo of her twisted into a scowl. But the venom seeped into her bones. She kissed Leo's head, sent him off to school, and braced for another day of battle. The city streets felt colder now, every glance from a stranger laced with judgment. At the diner where she picked up shifts, whispers followed her. That's her, a coworker muttered, eyes darting away. Maya kept her head high, but the betrayal came sharpest from Maria, her friend of 3 years. They'd shared late-night shifts, laughed over spilled coffee, and planned playdates for Leo and Maria's son. So when Maya saw Maria's face on the local news, her words cutting like glass, Maya always had a chip on her shoulder, always looking for a payout. Her breath caught, a knife twisting in her chest. Maria's eyes flickered with guilt on the screen, but the damage was done. Paid off, Maya thought, her fists clenching. Gregory's reach was longer than she'd feared. She met Marcus at his office, the air thick with the smell of old coffee and desperation. His desk was buried under papers, but his focus was razor sharp. They're playing dirty, he said, sliding a stack of articles across the table. This is just the start. Langston's team is flooding the media, painting you as a con artist. We need to counter fast. Get that video out. Maya nodded, but her voice trembled. Maria. She was my friend. How much did he pay her to lie? Her eyes burned, not with tears, but with fury. Marcus leaned forward, his voice low. Enough to make her forget her spine. But we've got the truth, Maya. That's more than they have. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of the world's scorn pressed harder. By afternoon, her inbox overflowed with hate, anonymous emails calling her a liar, a fraud, worse. She deleted them, but each word left a bruise. Then came the call from Leo's school. Ms. Williams, we need to discuss some concerns, the principal said, her tone clipped. Maya's heart sank. Gregory's shadow was everywhere. Driving home, the city blurred into streaks of gray. She gripped the wheel, her knuckles white, when headlights flared in her rearview mirror. A black SUV loomed too close, its engine growling like a predator. Her pulse spiked as it swerved, forcing her car toward the curb. Tires screeched, her hands shook. The SUV pulled alongside, its tinted window rolling down just enough to reveal a man's shadowed face. Think about your boy, Maya, he said, his voice a low rasp. Drop this, or it gets worse. The window snapped shut, and the SUV roared off, leaving her stranded on the roadside, her breath ragged. She sat there, the engine idling, her mind racing. This wasn't just about headlines or lawsuits anymore. It was about survival. Gregory wasn't fighting fair. He was fighting to destroy. She thought of Leo, His trusting eyes, his small hand in hers. If she backed down, what would she teach him? Does that power always win? That truth doesn't matter? Her jaw tightened. No. She'd fight, even if it meant walking through fire. Back home, the apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in. Leo was at a neighbor's, safe for now, but Maya's nerves were frayed. She called Marcus, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "They're following me," she said. "A guy in an SUV told me to think about Leo." Marcus cursed under his breath. "That's intimidation, Maya. We can use it. Document everything, time, place, description. We're building a case not just for assault, but for harassment." Langston's slipping. He's scared. Scared, Maya scoffed. But the idea sparked something in her. Gregory wasn't untouchable. He was lashing out because her video was a threat. She opened her laptop, pulling up the footage again. There he was, slipping the truffle into his pocket, his arrogance caught in 4K. She saved another copy to a USB drive, tucking it into her purse. If they were coming for her, she'd make sure the truth survived. As night fell, Maya sat by the window, the city's lights a distant promise. She thought of her mother, who'd faced men like Gregory with nothing but grit and silence. Maya had more. She had evidence, a lawyer, a reason to fight. Leo's laughter echoed from memory, his voice saying, "You're the best, Mom." She wouldn't let him down. Gregory's machine was grinding, but she was a spark, and sparks could ignite. Let him send his goons, his lies. She'd face them all, and when the time came, she'd make him pay. Maya's nerves were raw, each creak of the apartment's floorboards a jolt to her heart. The SUV's threat lingered like smoke, but she pushed it down, focusing on Leo's small hand clutching hers as they walked to the bus stop. His chatter about school, crayons, a new friend, kept her grounded, but the world felt sharper, more hostile. The headlines hadn't stopped. If anything, they'd grown venomous, painting her as a schemer out for Gregory Langston's fortune. She shielded Leo from it, but the weight pressed harder each day. She'd thought the video was her shield, but now it felt like a target painted on her back. Mid-morning, her phone rang. Marcus's voice was urgent. "Maya, we've got a problem. Check your email, now." Her stomach dropped as she opened a message from an unknown sender. CPS investigation notice. The words blurred. Allegations of emotional neglect. Claims she was exploiting Leo to fuel her lawsuit. Gregory's name wasn't mentioned, but his shadow loomed large. "Anonymous tip," the email read. Maya's breath hitched. This wasn't just a legal jab. It was a knife aimed at her core, her motherhood. By noon, 2 CPS agents stood in her living room, their clipboards like gavels. The woman, stern in a gray blazer, scanned the apartment, its peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, as if cataloging Maya's failures. The man, younger, knelt to talk to Leo, who clutched a stuffed dinosaur, eyes wide. "We just need to ask a few questions," the woman said, her tone clinical. "About your stability, Ms. Williams." Maya's hands trembled, but she nodded, her voice locked in her throat. They questioned her finances, her hours, her emotional state. Then they took Leo into the kitchen, closing the door. Maya stood frozen, the muffled sound of Leo's voice slicing through her. What were they asking him? What if he said something innocent that they twisted? Her mind spiraled. She saw Gregory's sneer, his hand raised, his empire crushing her like an ant. She was losing everything, not just her name but her son, her reason to breathe. When the agents emerged, their faces unreadable, they left with a warning. "We'll be in touch." Leo ran to her, his arms tight around her waist. "I told them you're the best mom," he said, but his voice quavered. Alone, Maya sank to the floor, Leo's warmth the only thing keeping her from breaking. She called Marcus, her voice cracking like glass. "They're coming for Leo," she said. "CPS. They say I'm unfit. Gregory did this, didn't he?" "He's won, Marcus. I can't lose my son. I'll drop the lawsuit." Marcus's voice was steady, a lifeline. "Maya, listen to me. This is a scare tactic. Langston's desperate. He knows the video's real. We can fight this. Document everything, and we'll turn it against him. You're not alone." She hung up, tears streaming down her face. The apartment felt like a cage, the city's hum a taunt. She'd fought so hard against the headlines, the SUV, Maria's betrayal. But this was different. Losing Leo would hollow her out, leave nothing but ashes. She curled up on the couch, her mother's voice echoing, "They always win." Maybe she'd been a fool to think she could challenge Gregory. Her hand hovered over her laptop, ready to draft a withdrawal email, when Leo climbed beside her. "Mom, why are you sad?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. She tried to smile, but it broke. "Just tired, baby," she lied. Leo frowned, clutching his dinosaur tighter. "You always say don't give up when you're right. Like when I fell off my bike and kept trying. You're right, aren't you? About the bad guy?" His words hit like a spark in dry grass. Maya stared at him, her 8-year-old son, so small yet so fierce in his belief. He was right. She'd taught him to stand for truth, to keep going even when it hurt. Dropping the lawsuit wouldn't just betray her, it would betray him, teach him that power trumps justice. She wiped her tears, her jaw tightening. "Yeah, Leo," she said, her voice low but growing stronger. "I'm right, and I'm not giving up." She pulled him close, his warmth fueling her. The CPS threat was a wound, but Leo's faith was her armor. She opened her laptop, not to surrender, but to fight. She typed a new email to Marcus. "We're not stopping. Find a way to use this against him." Gregory thought he could break her by targeting her son, but he'd miscalculated. Maya wasn't just a mother. She was a warrior, and this war was far from over. As night cloaked the city, Maya stood at her window, the skyline a jagged promise. The video, her truth, was still hers. And now she had something more. A fire kindled by Leo's words. Gregory's empire was vast, but even empires could fall. She'd make sure of it. Maya's resolve burned brighter than ever, Leo's words a beacon in the storm that threatened to swallow her. The CPS threat lingered like a bruise, but she refused to let it define her. She stood in her apartment's dim light, the city's pulse a faint hum beyond the window, and vowed to fight, not just for herself, but for the truth Leo believed in. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing. She hesitated, her heart still raw from the day's blows, then answered. A woman's voice, low and measured, cut through the static. "Ms. Williams, we need to talk, somewhere private." The diner was nearly empty, its fluorescent glow harsh against the evening's gloom. Maya sat in a corner booth, her coffee untouched, when a woman slid in across from her. Evelyn Langston was elegance personified, silk scarf, tailored coat, but her eyes held a guarded intensity. "I'm Gregory's wife," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya tensed, her hand gripping her purse, where the USB with the video lay hidden. "If he sent you—" "He didn't," Evelyn interrupted, her gaze steady. "I'm here because you're right. That truffle was a distraction. Gregory's hiding something bigger. Money laundering, offshore accounts. I've seen it." Maya's breath caught. This wasn't just a lifeline. It was a bombshell. Evelyn leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I can help you, but it's dangerous. For both of us." Maya studied her, searching for a trap. Evelyn's face was a mask of control, but a flicker of fear betrayed her. "Why risk it?" Maya asked. "You're his wife. You've got everything to lose." Evelyn's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. "Not everything," she said. "I've lived in his shadow too long. He thinks he owns me, like he thinks he owns you. He's wrong." She slid a flash drive across the table. "Emails," Evelyn said. "Enough to get the FBI sniffing around his finances? But it's only half the picture. The rest, bank records, transactions, I'm holding back. If something happens to me, they go straight to the FBI and the New York Times. Call it my insurance." Maya's mind raced. This was no simple alliance. Evelyn was playing a deadly game, a chess move against her husband. "I call it a dead man's switch," Evelyn added, her voice cold. "Gregory's smart. If he gets all the evidence at once, he'll know it's me. This way he's cornered, but I'm still safe. For now." Maya nodded, her respect for Evelyn growing. This woman wasn't just a betrayed wife. She was a strategist, as trapped by Gregory's world as Maya was, yet fighting back in her way. Back at Marcus's office, the air was thick with tension. Maya handed him the flash drive, recounting Evelyn's words. Marcus's eyes widened as he scrolled through the emails. Cryptic exchanges about offshore transfers and clean accounts. This is big, he said, his voice a mix of awe and caution. If we leak this to the right people, the FBI will have to act. But Langston's not stupid. He'll smell a rat. He already does, Maya said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. She thought of the SUV, the CPS agents, the headlines. Gregory's empire was closing in, but Evelyn's gambit gave her a new weapon. We use this, she said. We hit him where it hurts. His money. Marcus nodded, already dialing a contact at the FBI. We'll need to move fast, he said, and you need to watch your back. If Evelyn's playing this close to the edge, Gregory's going to start looking at everyone. That night across the city, Langston Manor was a fortress of glass and stone, its opulence a stark contrast to the tension within. Gregory stood in his study, a tumbler of bourbon in hand, his eyes scanning a report from his lawyers. The FBI was asking questions, nothing concrete, but enough to make his jaw clench. He turned to Evelyn, who sat reading, her face serene. You've been quiet lately, he said, his voice low, probing. Something on your mind? Evelyn met his gaze, her expression unreadable. Just tired, darling, she said, her tone smooth as silk. You've been under so much stress. His eyes narrowed, searching for a crack, but she held firm, her heart pounding beneath her calm facade. The room felt smaller, the air heavy with unspoken threats. Maya, back in her apartment, tucked Leo into bed. His small voice broke the silence. Mom, are you scared? She hesitated, then smiled, brushing his hair. A little, she admitted, but we're doing what's right. That's what matters. Leo nodded, his trust afire in her veins. She clutched the USB, Evelyn's flash drive beside it. Gregory thought he could crush her, but now she had an ally in his own house. The game had changed and Maya was ready to play. Maya's heart thrummed with a fragile hope. Evelyn's flash drive, a weighty promise in her purse. The city outside her apartment window pulsed with its usual chaos, but inside she felt the tide turning. The FBI had the emails and Marcus's contact confirmed they were digging into Gregory's finances. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was a crack in his armor. She tucked Leo into bed, his sleepy smile a reminder of what she was fighting for. But as she turned off the light, doubt crept in. Gregory's reach had already poisoned her name, her safety, her son's future. What would he do when cornered? The next morning, Marcus's office was a war room, papers strewn like battle plans. His face was grim as he gestured for her to sit. Langston's team reached out, he said, his voice low. They want to talk settlement. Maya's stomach twisted. A settlement meant money, safety, a way out, but it also meant silence. Before she could respond, Marcus slid a folder across the desk. They're offering 7 figures for you and Leo, enough to start over anywhere. And for me, he paused, his eyes flickering with something heavy. A partner position at their firm. My debts, my family struggles, gone. Maya's breath caught. She saw the weariness in Marcus's eyes, the lines etched by years of fighting, losing battles. You're considering it, she said, not accusing, just stating the truth. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his temples. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't tempting. This is a sure thing, Maya. A life for you and Leo without fear. The other path, our lawsuit, the FBI, it's a war, and wars don't guarantee winners. She stood, pacing the cramped room, her mind a storm. The money could mean a new home, a better school for Leo, a life free from Gregory's shadow. But it would also mean letting him walk free, his lies unchallenged, his power intact. She thought of her mother, swallowing insults to survive, and of Leo, who believed in her fight. If we take this, she said, her voice low but fierce, we're saying justice has a price, that he can buy his way out of what he did, to me, to others. What does that teach Leo? Marcus met her gaze, his expression torn. It teaches him you're safe, that you're alive. Langston's not just a man, he's a machine. You've seen what he's capable of. The SUV, CPS. What's next? His voice cracked, revealing a man weighed by his battles. Maya stopped pacing, her eyes locking onto his. What's next is we fight. If we take his money, we're telling him he's right, that people like me don't matter. I won't let him win, Marcus. Not like that. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling like dust. Marcus exhaled, a slow nod forming. You're right, he said, his voice steadier now. Justice isn't for sale. But damn, Maya, you're braver than I am. He picked up the phone, dialing Langston's team. The answer's no, he said, his tone final. We're seeing this through. As he hung up, a faint smile crossed his face, the first Maya had seen in days. You're making me a better man, Williams. She managed a small laugh, but her heart still raced. Rejecting the offer was like stepping off a cliff, but it felt right. She left Marcus's office, the city's skyline a jagged reminder of the battle ahead. Gregory wouldn't stop. Not now. Not when he knew the FBI was closing in. She checked her phone, half expecting another threat, but found a text from an unknown number. Be careful, he's watching everyone. Evelyn. Maya's pulse quickened. The alliance was holding, but the danger was rising. Across town, Gregory sat in his office. The city sprawled beneath him like a chessboard. His lawyer, Preston, stood rigid, delivering the news. Thorne rejected the offer. They're pushing forward. Gregory's fingers tightened around his pen, the snap of plastic echoing in the quiet room. She's nothing, he hissed. A nobody. And she thinks she can bring me down? His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something darker. Fear, perhaps, or rage. He thought of his father, bending to the weak, and his resolve hardened. Maya Williams would break, one way or another. That night, Maya sat by Leo's bedside, watching him sleep. The world outside was a battlefield, but here, in this small room, she found clarity. She'd chosen the harder path, the one where truth mattered more than safety. The FBI was moving, Evelyn was risking everything, and Marcus was all in. They were a fragile army, but they were hers. Gregory's empire was cracking, and she'd be the one to shatter it. As Leo stirred, murmuring her name, Maya whispered, "We're going to win, baby." The fire in her heart blazed hotter, ready for the fight to come. Maya's pulse thrummed like a war drum, her resolve hardened by the choice to fight rather than fold. The city's skyline glittered beyond her apartment window, a taunting reminder of Gregory Langston's power, but she was no longer the woman he'd humiliated. Evelyn's warning, "He's watching everyone," echoed in her mind, a shadow that followed her every step. She checked the USB drives in her purse, their weight a promise of truth. The FBI was moving, Marcus was steadfast, and Evelyn's gamble had given them a narrow edge. But Gregory wasn't done, and Maya knew his next move would be brutal. In Marcus's office, the air was electric with urgency. Papers littered the desk, but his focus was razor-sharp as he hung up a call with his FBI contact. "Langston's planning a press conference tomorrow," he said, his voice low. "He's got a video, a deep fake, showing you staging the truffle theft. He's betting it'll bury you in public opinion." Maya's stomach twisted, but her eyes didn't waver. "He's desperate," she said. "That means we're getting to him." Marcus nodded, a glint of admiration in his gaze. "Exactly. And we've got a counterplay. Evelyn slipped us something. Access codes to the conference's projection system. We can override his feed, show the real video, but it's risky. One wrong move, and we're exposed." The plan was audacious. Let Gregory play his deep fake. Let him think he'd won, then hijack the screens to broadcast Maya's authentic footage. The FBI was on board, their tech team ready to execute the switch. Maya's heart raced at the thought. Hundreds of eyes, cameras flashing, the truth laid bare. But Evelyn's role was the linchpin, and her safety hung by a thread. "What if he suspects her?" Maya asked, her voice tight. Marcus's jaw clenched. "She knows the risk. She's playing her part. We play ours." Across town, Evelyn moved through Langston Manor like a ghost, her steps silent on the marble floors. Gregory was in his study, barking orders into his phone, his voice a low growl. She caught fragments. "Make sure the video's flawless. Crush her credibility." And her pulse quickened. She'd fed Marcus the codes through a burner phone, her hands trembling as she typed. Every glance from Gregory felt like a blade, his suspicion a poison seeping into their marriage. She sat at her vanity, brushing her hair with deliberate calm, her reflection a mask of composure hiding the storm within. Maya spent the day preparing, her nerves a live wire. She met with the FBI tech, a wiry man named Carter, who walked her through the override plan. "We'll have one shot," he said, his fingers flying over a laptop. "When Langston plays his video, we cut in. Your footage goes live, and the world sees the truth." Maya nodded, her mind flashing to Leo, safe at a neighbor's. She'd told him she had grown-up work tonight, but his hug lingered, a reminder of why she couldn't fail. That evening, Marcus and Maya huddled in a diner, finalizing details. "The press will be there. CNN, local stations, investors," Marcus said. "If this works, Langston's done. If it doesn't..." He didn't finish, but Maya felt the weight. Failure meant more than losing the lawsuit. It meant Gregory's machine grinding her to dust. She gripped her coffee mug, the heat grounding her. "It'll work," she said, her voice steel. "It has to." In the manner, Gregory stood before a mirror, adjusting his tie, his reflection radiating confidence. His team had assured him the deepfake was perfect, Maya's image manipulated to look like a scheming thief. He smiled, imagining her face when the world turned on her. Preston, his lawyer, hovered nearby. "The media's eating it up," Preston said. "By tomorrow she'll be radioactive." Gregory's laugh was cold. "Good. Let her burn." Maya barely slept, her dreams haunted by Gregory's sneer, the CPS agents, the SUV's headlights. She rose before dawn, dressing with care, a simple blazer, her mother's old scarf for courage. She kissed Leo's forehead as he slept, whispering, "This is for you." The city was waking as she and Marcus drove to the conference venue, a sleek hotel ballroom buzzing with anticipation. Reporters milled outside, their cameras like vultures circling. Maya's heart pounded, but her steps were steady. She wasn't just walking into a room, she was walking into a battlefield. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of suits and flashing lights. Gregory stood on stage, his smile polished, his voice commanding as he addressed the crowd. "Today, we set the record straight," he said, his eyes scanning the room, missing Maya in the back. She clenched her fists, Marcus beside her, his hand brushing hers in silent reassurance. The screens behind Gregory flickered, ready to play his lie. But Maya's truth was waiting, a spark ready to ignite. The trap was set, and Gregory was walking right into it. The ballroom pulsed with anticipation, a glittering cage of power and privilege. Maya stood at the back, her heart a hammer against her ribs, Marcus's steady presence beside her. The screens above loomed like guillotines, and Gregory Langston commanded the stage, his voice smooth as venom. "Tonight, we expose a lie," he declared, his smile a blade aimed at the crowd of reporters, investors, and elites. Maya's fingers dug into her palms, the USB drive in her pocket a silent vow. The trap was set, and the truth was her weapon. Gregory gestured, and the screens flared to life. The deepfake video played. Maya, or a cruel imitation, slipping a truffle into her apron, her face twisted with greed. Gasps rippled through the room, cameras flashing like gunfire. "This woman tried to destroy me," Gregory boomed, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "But the truth always wins." Maya's breath hitched, her vision narrowing. She felt the crowd's judgment, their murmurs a rising tide. Marcus squeezed her arm, whispering, "Wait for it." In the control booth, Carter, the FBI tech, watched his laptop, fingers poised. Evelyn's codes had worked. The system was theirs. As the deepfake looped, Carter hit a key. The screens flickered, static crackling like a storm. Gregory's smile faltered, his hand raised to signal his team, but it was too late. Maya's footage erupted across every screen. Gregory's hand striking her face, the truffle vanishing into his pocket, his sneer as she was dragged away. The clarity was brutal, undeniable. The room fell deathly silent, the air sucked out by truth. Murmurs turned to shouts, reporters scrambling for their phones. Gregory staggered, his face draining of color. "Cut it!" he roared, his voice cracking. He spun toward his tech crew, but they were frozen, as helpless as he was. The screen shifted again, This time to audio from Evelyn's flash drive, Gregory's voice cold and smug, detailing offshore accounts and clean money. The crowd erupted, a chaos of shock and outrage. Investors whispered furiously. A senator slipped toward the exit. Maya stepped forward, her legs steady despite the fire in her chest. She climbed the stage, uninvited, her presence a quiet thunder. The room stilled, every eye on her. Gregory's gaze locked onto hers, a mix of rage and disbelief. "You thought you could bury me," she said, her voice clear, cutting through the din. "You thought money could silence the truth. But your lies have a price, Gregory." She turned to the crowd, her words measured but blazing. "His Cayman accounts, his shell companies, they're real. The FBI knows where to look." The doors burst open, FBI agents flooding in, badges flashing under the chandeliers. The crowd parted as they marched to the stage, their leader barking, "Gregory Langston, you're under arrest." Gregory lunged, his voice a snarl. "This is a setup." But hands restrained him, cuffs clicking shut. Cameras captured every second, his empire crumbling in real time. Maya stood tall, her eyes meeting Evelyn's in the shadows. A nod passed between them, a silent pact sealed by courage. The aftermath was a whirlwind. News vans swarmed the hotel, headlines screaming, "Langston, arrested in scandal." Maya and Marcus slipped out a side exit, the city's lights blurring as they drove away. "You did it," Marcus said, his voice thick with pride. Maya shook her head. "We did it. You, me, Evelyn." She thought of Leo, safe at home, and her heart swelled. The fight wasn't over. Trials, countersuits, maybe more threats. But tonight they'd won. Months later, the world had shifted. Gregory's empire lay in ruins, lawsuits piling up like wreckage. Evelyn, free from his shadow, started a quiet life. Her dead man's switch never triggered. Marcus, his debts lighter, took on new cases with a fire he'd thought lost. Maya stood on a stage of her own, launching the Leo and Williams Foundation for Justice Advocacy. The crowd before her, activists, survivors, everyday people, hung on her words. "Truth isn't cheap," she said, her voice steady, resonant. "But it's worth everything." She stepped down, Leo rushing to her side, taller now, his eyes bright with pride. "You showed them, Mom," he whispered, his hug fierce. Maya smiled, a peace she'd fought for, settling in her bones. The city stretched beyond, no longer a battlefield but a canvas of possibility. She'd faced Gregory's machine and won, not just for herself but for every shadow he'd tried to crush. The truth had burned bright, and its light would endure. And so Maya's truth burned through Gregory's empire, a testament to courage over power. What did you feel as her story unfolded? Did her fight spark something in you? Or did Gregory's fall surprise you? Drop your thoughts below. Share what moved you, where you're watching from, and what you predict for Maya's future. Your voice keeps this story alive. Thank you for joining this journey, for standing with Maya through every shadow and spark. Your support means the world. Until our next tale, keep chasing truth, and we'll meet again soon. Stay bold, stay curious.